If you've ever heard that the Hebrew word for mushroom, pטריה, comes from British soldiers talking about peach trees, you've been lied to. This linguistic myth is actually a perfect storm, a special kind of storm I can't say the name of in the first 30 seconds of a YouTube video without risking demonetization. It relies on a very specific modern phonetic quirk in how English speakers pronounce the letters T and R to convince you of a fake history. It's like Inception, but stupider. Stupider than calling suggestion Inception. Anyway, today we're going to use acoustic phonetics and historical linguistics to bust a myth, explain why tra sounds like tra to Americans, and look at the bizarre psychology of why we want words to have secret, sometimes acronym-filled backstories that are often a crock of ship high in transit. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Dr. Taylor Jones. I've got a PhD in linguistics from the University of Pennsylvania, and here on the channel I talk about everything related to language, linguistics, language learning, and culture. If you're into those topics, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. This is Language Jones.
So I'm going to Bologna in the fall for the Polyglot Conference, which means I've got about 3 months to get my Italian ready. I should be done with my whole Anki textbook pipeline by that point, but there's a big difference between what you learn in a textbook and what people actually do. And nowhere is that more apparent than with Italian. Since I'm on vacation, sort of, this is what I've been doing. Yeah, I know, right? There's language and then there's culture. Italian is notorious for animation, yelling, interruption, and crosstalk. Last time I was in Italy, I wished I could have just had dual language subtitles, the ability to pause, slow down the speech, replay things, loop things, have mouse over translation, and be able to add everything to my flashcards. Turns out I can with Lingopie. So when I want to incorporate something like loro ci cascano sempre into my vocabulary,
loro ci cascano sempre.
Ci cascano.
or ma che cazzo state facendo?
Scusate, ma che cazzo state facendo?
State facendo.
I can really perfect it. Oh, and they've added back Netflix and Disney+. So if you want to get started today, it is 73% off their lifetime subscription. You heard that number right. With my code, link in the description. Now back to the video. Andiamo.
I first came across this when somebody shared Elongilad's video on it. He, in turn, was responding to a painfully stupid claim made with such confidence that it's actually plausible if you don't know the languages. I won't do it justice. Just watch this.
In Hebrew, the word for mushrooms are pטריות, and that's because during the Ottoman Empire, or maybe it's the British Mandate of Israel, all the mushrooms were only found to grow under peach trees.
So, Elongilad, being Elongilad, demonstrates that the existence of the word pטריה in Hebrew predates the British Mandate by about, 1800 years at least. And he demonstrates that it's cognate with the word for mushroom in Arabic. P and F are related through a normal kind of sound change that gets called Grimm's Law when talking about English and Germanic languages after, yes, one of the brothers Grimm, and lenition or P turning into F when talking about literally all of the other languages. Every small discovery in philology was so-and-so's law back in the 17 and 1800s. It's also cognate with the word for mushroom in Aramaic, ptruta. But I wanted to take a different approach and answer a different question. Why would anybody believe this in the first place? To put it in more familiar terms, it would be like if I came on here and said, in French, the word for see you later is à tout à l'heure, and that's because in the Wild West, cowboys said toodaloo, and Acadian trappers and traders brought it back to France with them when they had to leave after Napoleon sold the Louisiana Territory to Thomas Jefferson, or maybe the Iroquois Federation. So for this one, the first part is that it requires you to think that pטריה and peach tree sound alike. This is really only the case in a very specific set of conditions. First, you are not pronouncing pטריה like a Hebrew speaker. And more importantly, second, you are pronouncing it how an American would pronounce it, or some Southern British varieties. Hebrew R is realized in a few different ways, but the default is closer to a French or a German R than to an English R. And the next most common way is closer to a Spanish R, or an Arabic R. The R in Merkin English is almost vowel-like, and crucially for the majority of the population, it's formed by pulling the tip of the tongue somewhat back in the mouth. For other speakers, there's a whole different configuration called the bunched R, which makes weirdly exactly the same sound, so everyone around you is making the same sound, but you can't see that they're doing it two different ways. The bunched R's walk among us undetected.
I've got one that can see.
Anyway, where was I? Right. So the retroflex R is immediately adjacent to the T in the word and ends up affecting it by causing it to be retracted. This is sometimes called anticipatory assimilation, which is different than when 7 of 9 thought things might be better if she rejoined the Borg collective.
I intend to rejoin the collective.
What happens is that words with a TR string end up making a ch sound. That's how it came to be that every time I took the train back to Philly for grad school at the beginning of the week, I'd hear I was at the Trenton Transit Center.
Hey friends, it's Christmas Eve day and I'm at the Trenton, New Jersey Transit Center.
It's also how you end up with the S in strings like string becoming string, especially in parts of the Midwest. It's actually been a problem for me teaching our daughter how to read because people keep trying to help her read, but they say things like, the little truck had a strange dream, like, the little truck had a strange dream. And she's dutifully trying to spell what she hears with the sound letter correspondences she's learned. If you want to know more about how linguists think about sounds, including the ones we don't even know we're making, and how sound change and language change happens, check out my upcoming digital Introduction to Linguistics, the Linguistics Blueprint. You can sign up for more information and join the waitlist at www.languagejones.com/blueprint, or just scan the QR code on screen. So if you take a word like patriote and you pronounce it incorrectly with a thick American accent, you get patriote, where the oat is the plural marker, and then you go, wow, are they saying peach trees? Patriote. Patriote. So I got a crucial point to emphasize. The myth is just a retrofit. It's fitting the sounds of one variety of English to modern Hebrew, which doesn't have those sounds. There's no phonetic bridge there. When I first encountered it, it was in writing, and I quite literally could not figure out how anybody thought pטריה sounded like peach tree. While this is particularly egregious, this isn't an isolated incident. The peach tree myth is part of a grand human tradition, folk etymology, and specifically the wild world of backformation and retrofitted acronyms as well. There's a ton of these, including belfry, where the bells are kept, originally from burfry, or female, originally from femelle and not etymologically related to male, or bridegroom from older bridiguma, but people stopped calling men guma and then assumed it was actually supposed to be the word for a servant that was still in use at that time, groom. I still call people guma. What a guma. My absolute favorite is the Yiddish bubby meise, which people think means an old wives' tale from bubby, grandmother, and meise, story. But its origin is actually from the 14th century chivalric romance Tales of Bevis, which was translated into Yiddish, was wildly popular, and then largely forgotten. An outrageous yarn was a Bevis story, but a few generations on, nobody knew who Bevis was. So, a bubby meise it was. One particular flavor people love is the acronym folk etymology, especially around words like ship high in transit or fornication under consent of the king. I just saw somebody claim in all seriousness that news was an acronym for northeast, west, south, which raises the question why it's nieuws in Dutch and what all the extra letters stand for. Or why it's nayas in Yiddish, which retains the Hebrew words for directions, so it should be tzmamed or something in that case. Not for nothing, there's an orthographic indicator of acronyms in there, just like in English. These gumas keep telling Bevis meises. So why do we do this? First is a need for order. We have a really hard time with arbitrariness, and as Saussure demonstrated in his course in general linguistics in 1906, arbitrariness is a core property of language. But we want words to have a reason to exist, and actual etymology is hard. Second is a narrative bias. A story about a British soldier looking under a tree is memorable. Sound changes over thousands of years of Afroasiatic linguistic history, and English and Germanic history are abstract and hard to visualize. Third is a secret knowledge hype. People love sharing "did you know" facts because it feels like discovering a hidden truth. Did you know that linguistics tells us that the ancient Greeks couldn't see the color blue? It doesn't. Did you know that pטρία comes from peach trees? It doesn't. Do you know that buckaroo comes from Spanish vaquero? That one's actually true. So part of why this stuff works is that sometimes the truth is so strange, our fictions are, well, plausible. And lastly, there's just phonological bias, especially among what LanguageSemp calls beta monolinguals, but who probably call themselves B1 languagers or something. Actually, leave me a comment if you want a video on the people who want to rid English of foreign influence, like the 60% or so that comes from French, Latin, and Greek. English is weird. I don't know about you, but I think the actual history is far more interesting and poetic than fake acronyms and folk etymologies. The real journey of Pטρία surviving through Jewish texts, preserving ancient Semitic roots, and being revived into daily spoken use is, I think, a much more beautiful story than an imaginary British soldier standing under a peach tree looking at a fungus. If you like what I'm doing with the channel, you can support it on YouTube with super thanks or over on Patreon at www.patreon.com/languagejones. Please leave a comment. They are great for the algorithm. And subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, happy learning.